For those of you who are joining online, welcome. My name is George Benaroya. During the day, I work as a CFO. I started my career at Procter & Gamble, then Tetra Pak, BioStore for Nvidia, now I work in private equity. Now, once per week, I get to do something I love, and that is to teach a class, a real finance class. So you were able to see the students, you will notice that they're not actors, they're real students. And let me show you what they do so you will understand better what we're doing here today. On their first session to learn about finance, students pick a company, any company they want. And 4 years ago, they picked Estée Lauder. And then what they will be doing every week is one finance decision or business decision. So, the days of agriculture and manufacturing are over now. Now, most people work in services. And one thing that we don't teach in business schools is about headcount. Now, this is not an HR class, this is a finance class, but the first decision that they make is about how many people do we need to have on a global basis at, for example, Estée Lauder or Natura next year. And this is how Cara, in this example, was going about it. Then, during the pandemic, which is when Garinois first joined us, we had a problem where we didn't have enough product to sell. So there were many products which were successful, and you will have to choose between giving it to your old clients or to new clients. And when you look at the chart, what you see on the right-hand side is that back then, students tended to choose old clients. Now, when you look now or before the pandemic, it was more even, right? 50-50. The other thing that we learned in class is that if you're getting a master's degree and so you go work as a digital strategist, you will make in the US about $90,000. But if you work in New York City, you will make $126,000. And if you work in El Paso, Texas, you will make one half. Now, El Paso is in the US, right? So they will be making one half, or those working in New York will make twice as much. And so what we try to decide is when we sell in El Paso, Texas, should we sell at a lower price? And this is the boat, well, before that, and we have some examples. Is, for example, a product sold by L'Oreal, and they sell at the same price. And when we do this test, in general, students tend to say that we should, price at the local levels, right, to be able to adjust to the local customers. Now, not all companies do that. Thanks, Ashley. In some companies, we use a global price list. So, for example, if you look at Apple, an iPhone sells at about the same price on a global level. The other thing that we learned how to do in class is how to increase prices. Nikki, who was one of the students when Garinois first came, was recommending this price increase with the reason why. That's a key thing, right? Now, she is not in my class. If you were to watch my students, you will see that they're all smiling and so on, right? But what would you do if the reaction from your clients like that? And that happened to me on my first job. There is a French retailer called Carrefour, and they did to us what they've been doing to Pepsi, and they were putting signs like that and not selling their products. So how do you go about it? How do you manage that? And this is mainly about how you go about communicating a price increase. And back when Ms. Garinois was with us, is what Michelle did on how to communicate that price increase. Now, the other thing that I would like you guys to see is what it was like when she was here the first time. This was during the pandemic. And if you take a look, you will see how far away are we seated. I think there's a video there. Is there any way we can play it? If you press on the PowerPoint. Maybe it's not working. Okay, but I'll tell you, if it was to play, you will see mainly this concept of, I think we're going to use PowerPoint, we're using sheets. So we were very far away, right? And it was all virtual. And now, for the first time, we have a chance to meet in person. So what we do with this process of, learning about finance and then bring in some speakers is we try to show participants and anyone joining online how real people, real leaders make those decisions. And we can stop sharing now. And one of the things that I like to do when I introduce speakers is if you go to her profile, you will see that she has had very senior positions. She's been, former vice president, executive vice president at Estée Lauder. She's been with J&J, very senior positions for many, many years. And now she's a board member. But what I like to do is I would like to invite speakers who will basically inspire students. And in addition to all that, what Mrs. Garinois does is she is a board member at the One World Foundation. It's a nonprofit, which goes back to the principles of food right and so on, which is how she got her master's degree at MIT. And it's this whole idea of helping with education, making it more accessible for students and for professors and teachers to learn about how business works. So please join me to welcome Mrs. Garinois.
It was very, very kind. So yeah, first of all, thank you for inviting me. It's always a pleasure to be with young people. As you said, I'm in several boards, but there's one board that is my preferred, is the MIT Sloan. It's another business school.
Yeah.
And I'm also in an advisory committee for safety, security, and artificial intelligence. So, and I have a chance to meet young people there as well. And that's the part that I enjoy the most. I'm delighted to see so many women. There is a few men, but men and women in your age, you have the world in front of you and you give me energy. So thank you for inviting me. And I look forward to hearing your questions.
So the way we do this is that students ask all the questions, not me. I will just ask one to set the background. And one thing that it may be useful for you guys to know is that depending on the company, the structure will be different, right? But if I was to generalize, so you start as an analyst, or sometimes if you have a master's degree as a supervisor, senior analyst. So you go analyst, then supervisor, manager, director, vice president, and then you get to be a CEO, a managing director. Now, above all that is the board of directors. And that is a position that Ms. Garinois now has. And so I think what will be good for them to know is when you are at that level, right? When you are at the board of directors, what kind of decisions you have to make? What do you do on a day-to-day basis?
Sure. Well, that's a bit of a premature question. Because to be a board member, you have to be a successful executive for 40 years.
Yeah.
So that alone, but you're going to work 60 years. So you may as well start planning your second part of your career, which is what I'm doing now. So yeah, as a board member, there's different types of boards. There's public companies boards or private businesses. And then there is for-profit, like the companies that make money, like Estée Lauder or Johnson & Johnson. And then it's for non-profits, like MIT or MIT or whatever. So again, all those different types of boards exist. And as you think of your career as a potential board member, you have to build it through time, as in any career. And typically, people start with a non-profit because those are the type of boards that people don't require board experience, and they don't require you to be already in C-suite. And then later, by giving, as in anything like you first give and then you get, then you end up to a private company boards. And then the third step is public company board. Now, all companies boards have the same goal, and they have a fiduciary responsibility to protect the interest of the shareholders. Actually, that's why they're there. And they sit above the executives, but they do not make the decisions for the executives. So they do decide. Number one, of the CEO. So they hire the CEO. Number two, the strategy which the executives prepare, they approve it, and then they approve the business plan. Number three, the remuneration of the CEO and the top members. And then number four, the overall governance of the company when it comes to providing the right numbers, so to speak, honest citizen of the country, and then complying with the rules and regulations of every country. So those are the main activities. Typically, a board is organized around committees. There is typically an audit committee that looks at the numbers. There is a compensation committee that looks at the compensation. There is a nomination and governance committee that looks at nominations, particularly the CEO, as also board members. And sometimes there is also a strategy committee. So typically, those committees meet 4 to 6 times a year, and they make recommendations to the board. And then the board meets 5 times a year, 4 times around the public results, just before the results, and the 5th time is the year-end closure. And then the board approves the recommendations of the committees on the areas that we described, which is primarily, the CEO, the strategy and the business plan, and the remuneration, and most importantly, being a good citizen and paying your bills and not making anything wrong. So that's, overall, as I said in the beginning, they sit above the CEO, but they're not the boss of the CEO. You don't make, there's a key distinction. As a board member, you're not an executive. Actually, I like to call myself non-executive board member, just to clarify. People are a bit confused sometimes because in the organization, you see sometimes the board sitting above the CEO. No, the CEO doesn't hear instructions from the board. The CEO does what they want to do, right? But they have to have approval for their strategy, and they have to deliver the numbers, and they're accountable for that to the board for the shareholders.
And there are some cultural differences, right? I remember that in Sweden, before we could actually name the CEO, we had to go to the union and tell the union, listen, we're going to name the CEO and so on. So in Europe, it's a bit different, right? Is there any main differences between, say, Europe, Latin America, and the US on how boards work?
Yeah, there are, as you said, differences. I mean, the boards as an institution started to work in England,
right,
to protect the interests of wealthy families. So the board members were the friends of the wealthy families to protect the interests of the children, however, because all those gentlemen figure out they will not die altogether. So frankly, that's how it started. But there are big differences. The overall principles are the same, but the organization, of course, is different, but it's converging. Interesting to see that it's converging. So in the US, you have often the CEO and the chairman of the board being the same person. This is in almost 40% of the cases. That is something that is changing in the US. So we see that slowly and surely you have those roles being separate because there's kind of conflict of interest. In Europe, that's not allowed. Those roles in many countries are not allowed to be the same person because you're going to have one to second the other. The second area is the remuneration of the boards. Again, the principle being independence. In Europe, you're not allowed to have equity options and stock. In the US, that's how actually you remunerate. So the board members have equity in the company. And again, the reason for that in Europe is that the belief is that to protect the interest of the shareholders, you have insider information. You cannot have stocks because then you will do whatever is good for your stocks. And ironically, for the same reasons, to protect the interest of shareholders, in the US it's the opposite. Because to protect their interests, you want to keep the stock up.
Right.
So there's a different philosophy because in Europe it's not just the stock price.
Right.
It's the long-term sustainable growth of the company. While here it's mostly about the market value.
Yeah.
Now the other key difference is that, as you said, historically in Europe the employees had a role, but now everything is changing. And the only country that didn't change is Germany. I'm sitting now in a board in Germany, a company called Douglas. I actually had the first board meeting this morning via Zoom at 5 o'clock in the morning. So I'm really excited. It's a wonderful company. So in Germany, they have the 2-tier system. So you have the executives having their own board, and then you have a supervisory committee sitting above the executives. And in the supervisory committee, you have almost half of the members are employees. And then the supervisory committee approves the recommendations made on the subjects we discussed before to the supervisory committee. So the employees have a say, and a big say, often have. So yeah, Germany is one of the few companies, to my knowledge, maybe there's other companies.
Right.
I'm not familiar with Asia. I never worked in Asia. Latin America is the same as North America. But there's no self-auditing knowledge.
Right.
But again, the biggest difference is into having the two roles together versus separate. Personally, I like the separation. I think that's more healthy.
Thanks very much. Should we go with the first question from the student? Yeah, go right ahead. Yeah. So now,
Thank you so much for coming today. It's an honor to have a conversation with you face to face. And my name is Jessie. And my question is, how would you assess the competitive edge of Natura, Estée Lauder, and Johnson & Johnson's marketing strategy compared to their competitor? And what distinguishing factors that make those companies stand out in the very competitive market of FMCG and skincare brands? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very good and very tough question, because the world that you guys are gonna live is gonna be 10 times or 100 times more competitive than the one that I live. So good luck. So it's a very tough to sustain competitive advantage in the long term. Ultimately, it's about being delivering something that is better than your competitors to your key consumer or patient, depending if you're a consumer goods company or a pharmaceutical or whatever. Ultimately, you have to give them something that is better than the competition. So, the companies I worked, they had that passion for the person that gets the product or the services or whatever else is offered. And that focus on the patient, focus on the consumer, and focus on the understanding of what they want, and also focus on innovation, understanding, what else can we do to satisfy a real needs, so understanding them deeply, locally and globally, and then offer them something that nobody else offers. So in the end of the day, it's about understanding here and providing something that she needs, she wants, and offer that at good quality and competitive prices. Now, the pharmaceuticals tend to be more product focused. The beauty or luxury businesses tend to be more product and services focused. So, again, depending on where you stand, you may have different focus, but in the end, the nature of the business is the same. So it is hard to always deliver something that she or he wants on time and better than competition. And again, it takes really talented people like you that have this passion for the patient. If you focus too much on making money, that's a bad idea. You have to be there to solve a problem.
thanks very much. Robbie, would you actually, yeah, we'll give a few. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming. What key insights have you gained about driving innovation while capturing and maintaining market share?
It's quite
Similar.
yeah. So again, you have to be focused on your consumer, and you have to have a culture for innovation. That means it's about talent. For brands, talking about market share, sorry, in the beauty or in a luxury business, you have to also have a point of view. So part of your differentiation is not just the product quality. It's a point of view you have about the world, about the issues like inclusion and diversity. So many brands have a strong voice and point of view that is offering a differentiation. So it's not just the products in a physical sense only. Of course, the product matters. Of course, the quality matters. But in the end of the day, there's more things. But the questions that you're asking is the same. To win a competition, you have to win the heart of the consumer, and you have to have people that understand here and have a passion for that, and that they offer that that edge to here, and that for the long term.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks very much. Yeah.
You know, I was asking George because many questions are.
Recorded. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
And we'll get to it
repeated.
because of the time. Yeah.
You know, is it better to go deeper and, because, you know, it's like a lot of questions.
Right.
And I would say maybe it's better to bucket them and go deeper. So we, but have a dialogue
Right.
versus just
Yeah.
giving you mechanical, high level answers which are repetitive. So, you know, you tell me, George, how you
Yeah.
answer, but you know, that's something that, I mean, you decide. We can decide to go deeper in some.
Yeah.
And then see how you go that.
Well, we have 3 questions which have been recorded, and so we'll merge them. Actually, why don't we go with yours, and then we'll go through all those 3.
Hi, it's
Together.
nice to meet you. Thank
Very
you
nice
for
meeting you.
coming. So this is on behalf of Alba Kian because she couldn't make it here today, so I'm asking for her. And she asked, research shows that with the increased digitization, clients are more demanding, difficult to reach, and less conformist and loyal. With this in mind, how do you recommend communicating with clients in a B2B and B2C environment?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very, very good question. And as I said in the beginning, you live in a different world, good luck. The lessons I learned is that, well, number one, you need speed and agility. 1,000 times faster than 20 years ago. So you have to build an organization capabilities around you that allow you for this speed and agility, which it's quite a paradox sometimes because large organizations tend to be a bit slower and less agile. But you know, in this new world, you have to do that. The second thing is that you know, I grew up in a world of broadcasting, television. My mother used to say, if television says it, it's good. This is gone. Now it's all about individualism and specific solutions to groups of people. So you have to try much harder. Now, an advice I would give you, however, is that we all think that we're unique and different. In any industry I worked in 7 countries and in 6 different industries. And in any industry I worked, I did try to understand the patient or the consumer in an individual way. I actually found out that there is a group of us. And more or less, I came to the conclusion that there is 12 groups and that are pretty much the same. So those segments have some behavioral or attitudinal aspects that are quite similar. As a Greek, I always like to say that it goes back to the Greeks invented it all. So that's why there were 12 guys in Greece, and half of them women, for that reason. And so again, in trying to provide individual solutions, don't fall into the trap. Individual meaning the person. No, there is types of us, and try to find what are the fundamental 6 or 12 types that will serve you better and prioritize those. It's a really, really important. So again, you're moving from a broad, one size fits all, one message, and credibility. I saw it in television, therefore it's good, to quite the opposites. Individualism and a consumer that knows more than you. And they go to Google, and before you know it, they have more information than you. So again, you have to just try more to segment the consumers in understanding those segments better, and then you have to offer more targeted solutions. You live in a world that is it's data driven, and you have to master that, and that's what you have. But it's not about the data; it is about the consumer. In the end of the day, the data is a tool that helps. I used to say for Estée Lauder, the vision originally was creativity driven. That's what Mr. Lauder created.
Yeah.
But then we changed it to consumer inspired, creativity driven, data powered. So you need all those muscles to serve that role. And you need to do that in a very agile way, in a test and learn modes, instead of having, very fixed ideas and hoping that you have a solution. The good news is that in this new world, you're allowed to make errors and course correct immediately. And there is an immediate feedback. Right. So yeah, that alone gives you tremendous learning. So again, that's another lesson. An error is not a punishment. An error is a lesson. So being smart enough to understand the difference of a lesson to a punishment and have a strong ego and self-confidence to take the lesson and do better. It's an art and a science. So, again, as you grow in your career, you build your confidence and you will see your errors and you enjoy them. While in the beginning, you'll think you're failing and you will do more of the same errors. So again, it is more complex than my time. I think it's more fun because of the reasons that I've said. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. Thank you.
I'm trying to go fast. Because
Yeah. Oh, you had a great idea.
idea.
Yeah, so what we'll do now is, and by the way, for those of you who are online or watching the recording, you gotta send the questions 2 weeks in advance, latest. We get hundreds of them. We have consolidated them, but you had a good idea. So what we're going to do is, we have 3 or 4 questions which are recorded, and Marisa is going to read out one of them. And why don't we play all of them, and then we find the theme, and then you can respond, in more details. So you want to start with the question that you're reading? Yeah.
Sorry. Excuse me, it's my allergy.
Yeah.
This question is, was there a change in management for your digital first strategy and consumer-centric marketing approach? If yes, please describe it. If not, what lessons did you learn that you apply moving forward?
So you're gonna read these 3 questions?
Yeah. And then if you could play the other 2, there are 3 actually. So the first one is from Patricia and then Jenny. Patricia is the voice that you will hear later on in film. So go ahead.
Hi, Mrs. Garinois. Thank you for your time. My question is, 32% of chief marketing officers are women, while 68% are men. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, is there a difference between departments when it comes to gender diversity and female leadership? Thank you.
The next one is one from Jenny and one from Jan. Perfect.
Hi everyone, my name is Jenny Geldman. I work in international marketing at a software company based in Madrid. Because of the time difference, I'm not able to join today's session live. However, as a marketer myself, I do have a question. Research shows that with increased digitalization, clients are more demanding, more difficult to reach, less conformist, as well as less loyal. With this in mind, how do you, Georgia, recommend communicating with clients in both B2C and B2B environments? Thank you.
I think we can bucket them into 2 buckets.
And then one more, if it,
one
yeah,
more.
that way we do it all, yeah.
Hi, Miss Garinois. Thank you so much for today's coming. My name is IMG, and my question is, given your experiences at Estée Lauder, Johnson & Johnson, and now as a board member at Natura, how did Estée Lauder utilize social media platforms to effectively engage with its audience amongst the growing trend of influencer marketing?
Super, yeah.
Great. So yeah, I mean, we can bucket them to 2 buckets or 3 perhaps. One is separate, which is women and marketing, and the other is, how do you deal with marketing in today's world with social media and it seems which we already touched a bit, so we can continue talking about. So let me start with the question about women, and then we can go back to the question about marketing in today's world. So I mean, the numbers that are mentioned, they're very right. In C-suite, you have 1/3 women, 2/3 men, which is ironic because in the classroom it's quite opposite. And I will ask you why. Again, it is something that is my big passion to understand why women are not advancing as fast as we would all like in any C-suite, not just in the marketing. Frankly, after the COVID situation, I observed a couple of years of going backwards. Many women decided to stay at home or work from home for obvious reasons, because they have children to take care of, and that made them more confident to continue doing that after COVID, and that alone is it's not a good thing for your career. So women are asked to make choices, or they have overall less self-confidence to go for the high-powered careers. And there is a class ceiling still, and there is a lot to be said. I don't think it's typical to marketing or only for marketing. Overall, you see less women in the C-suite than men, and less women in boards than men. There are more women in the softer areas of the business, such as marketing and HR, and sometimes in strategy. And you don't see them at the equal percent in harder parts, such as supply chain or finance or production. So you kind of have still this split, but the fundamental problem is not that. You can enter wherever you want, whatever your talent is how far do you want to go, how far will you be allowed to go, and how far will you go. So there are progress made. The number one barrier is, childcare. Women have to deal with that, and that makes them believe that they have to make a choice. Personally, I think this is completely wrong. I mean, in your generation, you're going to work 60 years, and taking care of your children is typically 5 to 6 years, then the school takes care of them. So I think you put yourself in a straight jacket if you think because of that you have to make a choice. You may make some choices for short term because of childcare, and now men and women actually taking care of the babies. So that is another advancement. I recently became a grandmother. My granddaughter Louise is only 2 months old, and my son and his wife exactly have both took maternity and paternity leave, and that changes the whole paradigm. But overall, women had been not equally represented in any area, and marketing is even worse because you're women and you end up not being in the top position. So I will ask you to then explain to me why. And my observation is, again, there are certain barriers which have to do with your language of power, self-confidence. A big barrier is your perception of needing to make choices when it comes to childcare, which I personally think is the wrong idea. I always say to the women I coach, and I coach many women, that why do you make a loan to buy a house and you don't make a loan to have a nanny and a housekeeper and whatever else you want to build your career? I mean, the 10 years of your 30 to 40 when you're going to build your career and your family are the most hectic and the most important years of your life. Why do you want to make money at that time? You invest in yourself. I mean, you pay for school before. Why do you pay for school and not for a nanny? Because this is the years you build your career, and then after your 40s, 50s, 60s, that's where you make the money. In the 50s, you never make your money in the 30s if you want to be, advancing your career. So again, there is a lot of models in the mind of women, mental models, and men as well, because when they see women slowing down for childbirth, they have their own mental models, which are all wrong. I mean, the world has changed. The the business of, producing women capable, I mean, more women now get education than men. So there has to be a concerted efforts from everyone to make sure that in those critical 30 to 40 years, you get a chance. Of course, corporations can do more to offer more affordable and accessible and available childcare. But also women have to have better role models, and that's why I'm here.
Yeah.
Because there is this role model. If you are successful in your career and a woman, you're either too aggressive, or you're unhappy, right? Or you don't have children. It's not true. It is definitely more work to have a career and family life. Definitely, there's no doubt about that. And women in my situation, and I had to work twice as much as men in my situation. But in your generation, things are changing. And money and loans can change a lot of things. So when the moment comes, if you have to build your family and your career, go to the bank. Take money and get all the services you need, because you need to be able to do those things well. You need help, and it's beyond the help of your mother or your husband. You need to be available to both sides 100%. So yeah, women in leadership, it is still an issue. It's getting better. So that's the good news. In the boards, we have seen a tremendous change in the last 10 years. When I joined boards 12 years ago, I was almost the only woman in boards. And now I'd say it's more than 30% in all the boards I am. Some of it is linked to regulations, because you have to have women in the boards by law. And some of it is linked to the fact that, women changing, every field including boards. But we have a long way to go. And again, remember, you put a self-inflicted limits to your mind. There is no model. Everything is invented, right? And all the invented models were created so far by a certain type of society that wanted women to stay at home and men to work. That's not the case anymore. So because there's not many women to offer you a different mental model, you have to create your own model. And that's okay. There is only one rule. There's no rules. Everything is invented. So again, as you approach the age of career building and building a family, which is your age actually in a few years, for men and women, it's not only for women. You have to create your own model and think analytically, the same way you think, analytically about business. Why do you want to buy a house and not to have a nanny? I never understood that.
Yes.
Because there was the security 50 years ago to have a house. That's changed. I mean, now it's too expensive to have a house. It maybe it's the worst investment you will ever make. Why to have a nanny and a housekeeper and whatever else you need, somebody to carry your garbage, then that will make you have double or triple or 4 times the salary when you're 40 or 50, 60. So build a new way, a new model, and think in everything, not just science. And that's how women also, they will put themselves in front. Then, of course, is the power of language, which I like to talk to women about. Women need approval, want approval, because again, that's another mental model we all have as women. And you don't, actually. You need to be more affirmative, more assertive in your language. And that's something that needs to change. And again, women use, a could, a would, a should, maybe. Women thank me when I promote them, and that irritates me. While men tell me what they will do with me. No, if you're promoted, it's because you're worth it. You have to thank yourself. So again, all those are cultural schemes that create models in the minds of men and women that block you from saying that and taking a chance on yourself. So you have to work on those. Now the rest will be time and history. So I don't want to talk more about that subject. I could talk about this all day, and I do talk about this today because it's very dear to me. So I'd like to move back to the business questions, which were about, if I recall correctly, it was about what did I learn in
the change management.
Change management. Yeah, well, as in anything in life, change management is more important than the change itself. Because, we all love change, but we don't like to change. So we want others to change, not ourselves.
Yeah.
And that is a problem because, it's similar to the discussion we had about model before. Things is hard and painful, or we don't have this mental model.
Yeah.
So again, that is something that it's so critical in anything doing business. It's change management. So you have to identify your organization. The people, there's three groups of people. People that really want to change and are there already. Then there's a group of people that they would like to change, but they don't have the self-confidence, they don't have the capabilities. And then there's a group of people that they just like comfort and they will never change. So when it comes to this, in building new capabilities, of course, you have to give everybody a chance, but you have to put a lot of energy in the number one and number two group in building the capabilities with them. And typically those two groups are the ones that are the most agile, and that goes with what needed in the new world. The people that don't want to change, period, they're the ones that like the status quo, and they're so scared, and that is very difficult for them to change. And so this is the hardest part I found to deal with that. But again, that's where in your generation, you will need to identify those groups and then put them in the right roles. If somebody is not to be changed because that's who they are, they may have a better situation in a different role. So again, change management is an art and a science, and it is all about leadership. It's all about understanding who are the people in your team, in your peers, and in your boss also, that would like the change. And then building the capabilities. It's also about syndicating risk in change management. So you cannot do those things alone. Not only you have to have a team, you want to make sure that people around you and above you, they do have the same kind of, you get together and you make sure that you actually syndicate the risk. So maybe I should move.
Yeah, we'll go to the next one. Yeah. So maybe we'll go through the next three and we'll go with the six. And yeah, we can go. Yeah, come on in. Yeah. So you're going to come here. Yeah. So the mic will get you much better to this side.
Hi, my name is Shuzi.
Yeah, very nice.
So
Where are you from?
China.
China.
Yeah. But really, I think you talk really useful ideas because I'm a young mom. So I have a 1-year-old baby.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, so I think
that's amazing.
Yeah. So consider your influential role in establishing a digital first mindset and a marketing excellence within organization like Estée Lauder, and also now as a board member at Natura. Could you share the insights on the most transformative marketing strategy you have witnessed or implemented that significantly influenced consumer engagement and brand loyalty?
Oh, that's a very good question. It's hard to answer with one. I'm just thinking now because I do remember the question. I don't remember what I wanted to give as an answer, but I can think of several. First of all, ironically, the one that I like the most as a case is something that happened 60 years ago. And that is, Mrs. Estée Lauder, when she created the brand Estée Lauder, she was an influencer. Estée understood that, women, once you take their hearts, they can be your spokesperson, and word of mouth is the best marketing. So she used to say, tell a woman, touch her hands, and then she will do miracles for you. And that alone, the business model she created 60 years ago with women in the big department stores, telling consumers and understanding them and giving them the service they want, and being an influencer, and being in many ways creating a social media business model of advocacy, because those women that they would tell their friends, and that alone, it was a very powerful model. It was not a broadcast model, it was from mouth to mouth. It's what happens today, right? So this happened 60 years ago and still relevant today, even more so because technology has enabled. So again, that business model and that creation, which today we call influencer marketing, is it has been dear to my heart because Mrs. Lauder had that idea 70 or 60 years ago. And that's how the brand was created. And that's how the business model of prestige beauty was created, which is not a broadcast model, it's an influencer model. A second case I can think is that of MAC. MAC is a beauty makeup brand of Estée Lauder, which was an acquisition of a tiny brand of the company many years ago. And the founders of that brand, they had a passion for AIDS, because in their group of peers, that was a major issue. Originally, makeup, it was a service provided in hair salons, believe it or not. And makeup artists, they were in the hair salons only to do your nails or you do your makeup, and that's it. There was not makeup artists as it's not today. So those two gentlemen were working in the hair salons, and their whole profession was not recognized. They were below the profession, so to speak. So those two gentlemen had a purpose to both help AIDS, which in their group of people was a major disease, as well as to give pride to people like themselves and making the profession of makeup artistry a true profession. So to make the story short, the name MAC stands for Makeup Artistry Cosmetics. They invented a job and they created schools. And that, in the auspices of Estée Lauder, that became the key reason for the brand becoming successful. So makeup artists were trained at school, and it was, actually most of them they came from, they were painters. They were very powerful and very successful makeup artists, but before they were not recognized because, as artists in general, how difficult art is and how difficult it is to make money. So they gave them a clear profession with levels, which you could become the CEO as a makeup artist. You're not below the hairdresser. And then also, during the growth of the brand, one of my colleagues in Estée Lauder of the time, John Dempsey, who has retired from the company, had this idea to also create a kind of a collaboration with the AIDS Foundation. Mm-hmm. So basically, a month every year, the profits of the lipstick, one lipstick product, that will go to the AIDS Foundation. Mm-hmm. And a lot of millions, hundreds of millions are given to the AIDS Foundation. The consumer knows that, and how do they know that? Because a lot of artists, famous artists like Rihanna, like famous singers, promote for free that idea. And so that became a tremendous advocacy tool for the company and also for the consumer. The consumer was happy to buy more because they knew at this period the money will go to the AIDS Foundation. So it became a tremendous trial mechanism for the company and the brand, an amazing contributor to the AIDS cause. And all that in the course of the last, I think, 30 years, contributed to the cause of reducing AIDS. So you can see how, starting with two individuals, that they felt that the world did not see them, and how they used all their energy to actually being seen and make others like them being seen, has transformed an industry. And now every brand tries to be black and white. Every brand has makeup artists. You go to Sephora, you go to Ulta, it's a million brands. Everybody wants to do that. And the question is, what will MAC do, given that everybody wants to do what they want to do? But, just 30 years ago, that didn't exist. So that shows you the power of your ideas, if they're dear to your heart, and if you want to, if you have a purpose about something, you can actually transform the world. So again, those are 2 examples of Mrs. Lauder and the MAC brands that I can think. I can think more of this, but sorry guys, I have my allergies. So, there are several cases I can think, but I don't want to waste your time. The message is always the same. In the beginning, there's a human that has passion for something. And that passion is transformed to a big business idea. And then history writes itself.
Yeah.